So, what happens when a group of arrogant hotel staffers decide to treat someone poorly based on their own biases? Unfortunately, in most cases, they get away with it. But in this case, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Let's just say karma has a funny way of turning things around. It all started on a sunny Thursday afternoon. The lobby of the prestigious Sterling Crest Hotel was bustling with activity as guests checked in. Staff moved hurriedly about, and the front desk phone rang incessantly. Among the crowd was a poised black woman named Danielle Foster, dressed casually in a flowing blouse and tailored slacks. Danielle exuded quiet confidence. She carried nothing that would immediately indicate her status: no flashy jewelry, no entourage, just a small overnight bag slung over her shoulder. What no one knew was that Danielle had purchased the Sterling Crest Hotel 6 months ago. Owning a piece of history and transforming the struggling establishment into a beacon of hospitality and excellence had been her dream. But instead of a grand unveiling or a press conference, she chose a different approach. She wanted to see how the staff operated under normal circumstances before implementing any changes. That day, she intended to check in anonymously to get a feel for how things were running. Approaching the front desk, Danielle was met with a frosty stare from Allison, the receptionist. Allison, a young woman with impeccably manicured nails and a name tag tilted just slightly off-center, glanced Danielle up and down. Her tone was curt. "Can I help you?" she asked, her words laced with disinterest. Danielle smiled warmly. "Yes, I have a reservation for this evening. Foster. Danielle Foster." Allison frowned as she tapped away at the keyboard. A few seconds later, she looked up, her eyebrows knitting together. "I'm not seeing your name here. Are you sure you booked with us?" "Yes, I'm sure," Danielle replied, maintaining her composure. "I received a confirmation email just this morning." She pulled out her phone to show Allison the email, but the receptionist barely glanced at it. "Well, the system says there's no reservation under that name," Allison said flatly, crossing her arms. "Are you sure you didn't book at the Sterling Inn? That's a motel a few blocks down." A hush fell over the nearby guests, some of whom glanced over uncomfortably. Danielle's expression didn't falter. "I'm positive I booked here," she said firmly. "Perhaps you could check again?" Allison sighed dramatically, clearly annoyed. "Look, ma'am, I've already checked. There's no reservation under your name. And honestly, if you don't have a reservation, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. We're fully booked." At this point, a middle-aged man in a suit, the hotel manager, Mr. Langston, approached the desk. Noticing the tension, "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Allison gestured toward Danielle. "This woman claims she has a reservation, but it's not in the system. I was just explaining that we're fully booked." Danielle turned her attention to Mr. Langston, her smile still intact but her patience waning. "I'm Danielle Foster. I made a reservation here, and I have a confirmation email to prove it." Mr. Langston gave her a dismissive once-over. "I'm sorry, but if the reservation isn't in our system, there's nothing we can do. Perhaps you could find accommodations elsewhere?" The condescension in his voice was palpable. Danielle decided to take a different approach. "Could you call your corporate office? They'll be able to verify my reservation." Allison rolled her eyes. "Ma'am, we're extremely busy. We can't spend time chasing down a mistake that's not ours." Before Danielle could respond, a security guard approached, likely called over by Allison. He stood tall, arms crossed. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Danielle raised an eyebrow. "No problem," she said. "Just a misunderstanding about my reservation." The security guard looked to Allison, who said, "She doesn't have a reservation and refuses to leave." "I never refused to leave," Danielle corrected calmly. "I'm simply asking for clarification about my reservation." The guard's posture stiffened. "Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to escort you out." At this point, the other guests in the lobby were visibly uncomfortable, whispering among themselves. Some even pulled out their phones to record the unfolding scene. But Danielle wasn't fazed. Instead, she pulled out her phone, opened her contacts, and made a call. "Hello, this is Danielle Foster," she said into the phone. "I'm at the Sterling Crest Hotel, and I'm having a bit of an issue. Could you send over the regional director and legal team? Thank you. She ended the call and turned to the staff. I'll wait right here. The confidence in her voice unsettled Allison and Mr. Langston, but they didn't dare back down. Instead, they exchanged nervous glances and muttered to each other. 15 minutes later, a tall man in a tailored suit entered the lobby, flanked by two other individuals. He approached Danielle with a broad smile. Miss Foster, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. We'll get this sorted out immediately. The room went silent as everyone watched the interaction. Mr. Langston's face turned pale. Wait, he stammered. Miss Foster, you mean? The man in the suit turned to Langston. Yes, this is Danielle Foster, the owner of the Sterling Crest Hotel. The shock on Allison and Mr. Langston's faces was almost comical. Allison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I didn't know, she whispered. Danielle's smile finally faded, replaced by a look of quiet determination. That much is clear, she said, and it's exactly why I chose to come in anonymously, to see how guests are treated when you think no one is watching. She turned to the man in the suit. Please have the staff's training records pulled. I want a full review of their conduct and adherence to company policies. Turning back to Allison and Mr. Langston, Danielle's tone was firm. Your behavior today was unacceptable, not just to me, but to any guest who walks through those doors. This is not the kind of establishment I want to run. Mr. Langston stammered an apology, but Danielle held up her hand. Save it. Actions speak louder than words. Consider this your formal notice. Effective immediately. You're both relieved of your duties. Allison's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't protest. Mr. Langston, on the other hand, tried to argue. You can't just fire me without? Actually, I can. Danielle interrupted. And I just did. The man in the suit signaled to the security guard, who escorted the former employees out of the building. Danielle turned back to the gathered guests, her demeanor softening. To everyone here, I apologize for what you witnessed today, she said. This is not the kind of experience we want for our guests. Please know that changes are being made to ensure everyone feels welcome and respected. The crowd erupted into applause, and several guests approached Danielle to shake her hand. One woman said, "Thank you for standing up for what's right. It's inspiring to see someone take action." Over the next few weeks, Danielle implemented a complete overhaul of the hotel's policies and staff training programs. The Sterling Crest Hotel soon became a shining example of hospitality done right, and every time Danielle walked through the lobby, she was greeted with warmth, respect, and gratitude, a testament to the power of leading by example.